5 ways cops trick you during a traffic stop, and how to stop them. Imagine you're driving home after work. The lights come on behind you. You pull over. The officer walks up to your window and says, "Good evening. Do you know why I stopped you?" Most drivers think this is just small talk. It isn't, because right now the officer hasn't decided whether you're getting a warning, a citation, or whether this stop is about to become a much longer investigation. And in the next few seconds, one answer can completely change the direction of the encounter. Today, we're breaking down 5 common ways officers gather information during traffic stops, the single decision point that matters most, and the exact phrase that can help you avoid making the encounter harder than it needs to be. One piece of knowledge can change how a situation ends for you. Subscribe now so you're prepared. Then share this video and tell me what you think about it in the comments. Let's get into it. The first tactic is probably the most common. The officer approaches and asks, "Do you know why I stopped you?" Most people immediately start guessing. Was I speeding? I think I rolled through that stop sign. Sorry, I was looking at my phone. The problem is that many drivers don't realize they're volunteering information before the officer has even explained the reason for the stop. The officer isn't necessarily asking because he doesn't know. He's asking because your answer tells him a lot. Are you nervous? Are you distracted? Will you admit to a violation? Will you provide more information than necessary? That's why so many people talk themselves into trouble before the traffic stop has really begun. But surprisingly, this isn't the biggest decision point. The second tactic comes seconds later. The officer asks, "Where are you coming from? Where are you headed?" Seems harmless. Most people answer automatically. But these questions serve a purpose. Officers often compare answers against observations. If a driver says they came from work but there's gym equipment in the passenger seat, the officer may become more curious. Not because the answer proves wrongdoing, because inconsistencies create suspicion. Again, the issue isn't necessarily the question, it's how much information people volunteer. The third tactic is one almost everyone falls for. The officer returns to the window and says, "Mind if I ask you a few more questions?" Notice the wording. Most people hear this as a polite request. What they don't realize is that the original reason for the stop may already be over. The officer may now be looking for consent to continue the conversation. And this leads us directly to the most important moment of the entire encounter, the decision point. Not when the lights come on, not when the officer asks for your license, not when he explains the reason for the stop. The decision point happens when the encounter shifts from the traffic violation to voluntary conversation. It's the moment the officer starts asking questions unrelated to the reason you were stopped. That's where many drivers lose control of the encounter. Let's compare 2 responses. Wrong response. Officer, mind if I ask a few more questions? Driver, sure. Officer, do you have anything illegal in the vehicle? Driver, no. Officer, any weapons? Driver, no. Officer, mind if I search the car? Driver, I guess that's okay. And suddenly, a 5-minute traffic stop becomes a 30-minute investigation. Now let's look at the alternative. Officer, mind if I ask a few more questions? Driver, am I free to leave? That's it. Simple, professional, clear. No argument, no attitude, no legal lecture. Just one question. Am I free to leave? Remember that phrase, am I free to leave? Because that's the exact response you should memorize. Am I free to leave? The reason it works is simple. It forces clarity. If the stop is over, the officer must decide whether he has a lawful basis to continue detaining you. If he does, he'll tell you. If he doesn't, the encounter often ends. Notice what this response does not do. It doesn't accuse the officer. It doesn't challenge authority. It doesn't start an argument. It simply identifies whether the interaction is still a detention or has become a voluntary conversation. Now let's talk about the fourth tactic, pressure through persistence. Sometimes after hearing your question, the officer may respond, "Why are you in such a hurry? If you've got nothing to hide, why not answer? It'll only take a minute." Many drivers fold right here. Not because they want to, because social pressure is powerful. Most people don't want to appear rude. But remember what's happening. The officer is gathering information. That's his job. Your job is to decide whether you want to continue the conversation. The response remains the same. Officer, it'll only take a minute. Driver, am I free to leave? Officer, I just need to ask a few questions. Driver, am I free to leave? No anger, no debate, just consistency. The fifth tactic is one almost everyone falls for. The officer phrases requests as if they're routine. Go ahead and step out for me. Just answer a couple questions. Just let me take a quick look. The word just makes the request sound small, but small decisions can have major consequences. Every additional statement creates more information. Every additional explanation creates more opportunities for misunderstanding. That's why recognizing the decision point matters so much. Because once the conversation moves beyond the original reason for the stop, every answer becomes a choice. Now let's briefly discuss the legal foundation. In the United States, a traffic stop is generally considered a temporary detention under the Fourth Amendment. Officers can investigate the reason for the stop and take reasonable steps related to traffic safety. But courts have repeatedly recognized that extending a stop beyond its original purpose requires legal justification. One important case often discussed in this context is Rodriguez versus United States, where the Supreme Court held that officers generally cannot prolong a completed traffic stop for unrelated investigations without sufficient legal grounds. You don't need to memorize case names. You only need to recognize the decision point. When the original purpose of the stop appears complete and unrelated questioning begins, that's when clarity becomes important. And clarity starts with one simple question. Am I free to leave? Short, polite, memorable, and effective. Because the smartest drivers aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who recognize the decision point before the officer does.